And again, it's my pleasure to introduce Scott Ritchie. You're on. You can or I can?
Well, I can.
Okay.
All right. Where is it? Oh, it's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible, yeah.
Yeah,
We have one right here.
Who knew?
I know this is the Methodist Church. But
I know. That's freaking me out here. All right. Let me find it. As I get older, it's harder to read. Thanks. Here we go. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from the vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from a demon possession." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me." He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted," and your daughter was healed from that very hour. Holy words for holy people. The Canaanite woman in Matthew's Gospel in the early church was given a name Justa, Justa, is which the center is named after. Is it okay if I come down? Can you still see me in the back? Those lights are, I feel like I'm on television. Matthew or Mark doesn't give her a name, but we'll call her Justa, since the early church, when they would preach on this text, gave her the name Justa. So we'll call her Justa. Now, I asked this question with some trepidation. Are any of you offended by that reading? Were any of you outraged by that reading? Were any of you disturbed by that reading? Is yes, no? This is no? Okay. That's too bad. Because this is a really offensive reading, and you should be offended. Because if you know that reading and you've kind of assimilated it, everything is wrong with that story. Everything is outraged by that story. Everything is wrong. So let's just kind of put it in context as our first century ancestors would have heard this story. We start with a Canaanite woman. She's a foreigner. She's unclean. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's talking to a Jewish man in the public square. One strike against her. This is an outrage. Why would a foreign woman talk to a Jewish man in the public place? That is not her role. Because in the ancient world, where was her place? In the kitchen or at the well? Not in a public square talking to foreign men. She is shameless. How dare this woman disrupt dinner? I was just enjoying my matzo ball soup, and here is this foreign woman who's out of place talking to us. Outrage. On that side, they're doing all the right things, right? The disciples and Jesus are doing the right things. Get rid of this woman. She's defiling us. She's making us unclean. She's impure. Get rid of her. So they're doing the right thing. She's the problem child here. She's in the wrong place at the wrong time talking to the wrong people. She's a foreign woman in the wrong place talking in the public square. Now, here's the second strike against her. Outrageous. She asked for healing for her daughter. It's crazy. Because in the ancient world and in many parts of the world today, what makes you an honorable woman? It's not having daughters. It's having sons. To be honorable is to have a son, not a daughter. And in the ancient world, grace is limited. Actually, everything is limited. Grace, healing, money, power, honor, shame, all of that is limited. So here is a woman, foreign woman, unclean, out of place, asking to heal a daughter, a foreign daughter on that. Outrageous. Get rid of this woman. She's a pain in our rear. And so she asks, She asks, will you heal my daughter? The disciples at first say, get rid of her. And then Jesus says, I'm sorry, I haven't come for you. I haven't come for you. You need to go away. Now, you also need to know in the ancient world that anytime there's a conversation in the Gospels, it's never a nice little conversation that we're having and a gentle kind of thing. It's always about honor and shame. And what you want to do in a conversation is you always want to take that other person's honor. And so you want to shame that other person. So anytime there's a conversation, it's always a power struggle because, again, honor and shame are limited. So you want to take the honor of that other person. So she says, will you heal my daughter? He says, I haven't come for your folks. He wins the argument, She's shamed again. But she doesn't stop. She says, yes, but even the dogs get to eat from the master's table. Again, another outrageous statement coming out of Jesus' mouth. Calls her the worst insult you can call another human being still today in the Middle East. She calls her a dog. The disciples cheer. We can go back to our hummus and our pita bread. She can go away. We can go back to dinner. Jesus wins. But Justa says something else. She says, yeah, but even the dogs get to eat from the master's table. And at that point, Jesus is beat. She becomes the honorable one. And her daughter is healed. It's an outrageous story. I remember sharing this. There was a reader a few years ago when I shared this at a church, and the woman finished reading, and she says, I hate this gospel. I don't know why you chose it. So it was a nice introduction as I got up to preach. Justa has become our patron saint down at the center. And we got her name because there was a gentleman who was 63 years old. And he slept out in the cemetery, which is about 3 blocks from the center. It was before we had opened, and we were just kind of preparing and getting ready. And he came to me and he said, I was just called a dog. He says, I'm a grandparent. I'm a Vietnam veteran. And because I had a heart attack and couldn't get reemployed at my age, I'm living in the cemetery. And someone thought I was a dog. And I thought of a time that someone else was called a dog. And because of her resilience, and because of her grace, and because of her commitment, she shattered some of those areas where we think folks are dogs. Now, I don't know if this is your experience, but it's been my experience that in the United States right now, we don't have a great love or care for older adults. We've kind of dismissed our older adults. Somehow we think that 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds have more experience and more wisdom. They may be able to help us with our computer systems and set up our DVDs and our Blu-rays, but in terms of life experience, they have none. And yet we take their value and their wisdom over someone who's 60, 70, 80 years old. We live in a country that devalues older adults. And then add homelessness. Become an older adult and homeless. You're really devalued. No longer are you a parent or a grandparent or anything that you've ever done in your life. You're just a homeless person. You don't even have a name. You've lost even your identity. And in the United States of America today, the largest and fastest growing group of homeless are older adults, are senior citizens. We see at the Justa Center 125 people a day. It is projected that in the next 10 to 15 years, that number will increase by 50%. We will be seeing 250 people per day. And so I stand with Justa and the rest to say that, you know what? No one is a dog. She shatters our prejudice. She shatters our rules and regulations about who's in and who's out. She stands for that moment in time to remind us that the reign of God is open to all of us. It doesn't based on gender or status or those kind of things that we like to set boundaries around. What she sets for us is that the reign of God is for all of us. We're all children of God. Just a couple of, where's my friends that said that I would do my pitch? So here's my pitch. So the Justice Center does a couple of things, just very briefly, just to explain a little bit. We're the only thing in the United States that cares for now the largest and fastest growing group of homeless. We're it. We started this 5 years ago. We had no idea what we were doing. You all invited me when we first started. You guys were over in the elementary school, and you invited me, and it was a July, and there was about 10 of us. Steve was there, and there was about 10 of us, and it was hot. And I began to just share a little bit of that story. This is my third time with you, and so I appreciate it. I'm usually not invited back this many times, so you all get the Justice story. So, but what we've done in the last 5 years that we've been open is that we really do three things. We get everybody's documents together. We get a revenue source in place, whether that's Social Security, a veteran's benefit, whatever the case may be, and then into housing. And for the past 5 years, we've averaged about a person a day out of homelessness. And that's incredible. That really is incredible. And yeah. And what the incredible piece is that over 1,500 people since we've opened have moved back into homelessness. We've only had 51 people return. And that's the real remarkable piece. Because what I find as I go around and talk is that people have, again, a prejudice, and especially towards older adults. And so I'll say to them, why do you think older adults are homeless? And they'll say they've chosen it or they deserve it. And I will stand before you and say that in the 5 years that I've been doing this work, we have yet to find anyone who has chosen to be homeless. And here are really the reasons why folks are homeless and what we're seeing in a difference. It's usually mental and physical disability, folks being released from prison, bad luck, substance abuse, or developmental disability. And that last group is rising. Folks with a developmental disability whose parents die, they're 60 years old, haven't worked, families don't surround them or help them, but exploit them and send them out on the street. Two other things have changed in the past 5 years. We're getting older. This past year, we had several people. Now, I think one is too many, but we had a large group of 80-year-old men who are homeless. Korean War veterans, homeless, 80 years old. That's an outrage. And I know it's easy just to dismiss, like our friends in the gospel, the disciples, send them away, send her back to her place. But it's an outrage that 80-year-old people are wandering around the streets of Phoenix. And why is that? Well, it's usually because of not mental health, but physical, usually around dementia and memory care. Seen a rise in that. I'm seeing a rise with mental illness. And then we're seeing a rise in women and older women who are becoming drug addicts. But not the traditional drug addicts, unfortunately. I like alcoholics. I know how to deal with alcoholics. I'm good with them. But I'm seeing a rise in drug addiction differently.